Hey, everybody, welcome back to We Are the Batman. I'm Mike.
And this is Matthew.
So we decided it would be fun to pitch a Justice League spinoff. Not a movie, not a TV show, but a comic book. We've had many variations of the Justice League over the years. Justice League Dark, Justice League
International, JLA.
Yeah. So we thought it would be fun to pitch an original idea for a Justice League subtitle. We picked the characters who were involved, and we pitched the concept of it. That's what we're going with today. We just thought it would be kind of fun. I changed mine at the last minute because we are finally watching Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom now that it's on Max. Review for that coming very soon, eventually. Woof. But we are going to talk about it. But actually that movie kind of informed my decision of what I wanted to see. So we'll get into that. Matt, this was your idea, so I'm going to let you take the lead on this one. Let's start off with just what is your title and overall concept for a Justice League spinoff?
Well, I'm gonna rewind a little bit and just say I think kind of like the Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths cartoon is what kind of brought this into my mind.
Okay.
And it was like, there's always something different, always something new. But then we had an episode where I think I caught you off guard and said, "Hey, what's a comic book title you would create?" Or maybe you asked me that, and I think I said I would do like a Justice League Strike Force with Nightwing leading it or some crap like that. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? Let's run with that because that's always fun. And, pitching new comic book titles is interesting because I think sometimes people, especially the bigger comic book companies, they get stuck in the what's going to sell, what IP is the most popular. Whereas like currently writing for some indie comics, none of it's IP recognized. You want it to be, but so you just have to pitch these random things and hope it gets some kind of traction. So I'm always excited when DC did that. It was, I want to say it was shortly after Rebirth where they introduced like the Terrifics, and I can't remember who that little Spider-Man looking guy was. There was like 4 or 5 new titles that they just kind of threw out there. And unfortunately, I don't think any of them stuck, but I like the Terrifics a lot. So I was like, let's do something like that. And of course, because it's DC and because it came from Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths, I'm like, let's go Justice League, because there used to be a ton of Justice League titles. And I think now there's only 2.
Yeah.
There's
I don't even think Justice League Dark is running anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to verify that while I'm talking. But no, I think that's like, because it used to be like there was Justice League, and then there was Justice League of America, and then there was Justice League International, and then you even had the cartoons. So I just thought it would be fun to kind of do something of that nature, and roll with it. So you want me to go right into my thing, correct?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what your concept, and also, yeah, Justice League Dark ended in 2020, okay. Just like the rest of the world did. Yeah, what was your overall concept and title for your Justice League subtitle?
I think I'm gonna stick with what I told you before, which is Justice League Intergalactic, which is like or Galactic. I'm sorry, which is the idea of like the Justice League always seems to operate on Earth. And I was like, why wouldn't they have a team out there in the cosmos doing the thing? Because, there are so many different, I mean, I know you have the Lanterns and some of these other guys, but it's like the Lanterns are their own thing. They have their own agenda. And I just thought it'd be interesting if you could get like a Justice League team that was out there doing the Justice League thing, not under OA's control, not under whoever controls the Manhunters, just somebody who's kind of doing that good fight thing. So that was my idea.
Okay. I like that idea. Yeah, because you're right, especially when you remember like the Justice League has a base of operations in space. Yeah, and I think a lot of times, I think you kind of summed up why there really hasn't been one is mostly because, yeah, like the Green Lanterns exist whenever you want to go intergalactic or interstellar. And use the Lanterns as kind of, or the New Gods. That's kind of what they're for. But yeah, occasionally the Justice League has a mission that goes into space, but it's usually after like a direct encounter, not so much like, general patrolling like they do on Earth, or at least in our solar system. So yeah, that's a cool idea. Because I think yeah, outside of like New Gods and Green Lantern, you don't get a lot of, or as much time spent in the intergalactic realm of DC.
Well, and I also think, especially with where I went, is like it also opens up an entire weird who are we going to put on this team?
Hmm.
Because I think, unlike an Earth based Justice League, like it's going to be really hard to put somebody like Batman or Huntress
Hmm.
on a team that's out in space. Like you could do it because when Justice League International was out, there had adventures in space, and Blue Beetle and
Yeah.
Booster Gold and Batman were there. But I was like, no, you'd probably want a little bit more cosmic guys. That's the whole idea. Have something different. So my roster is insane.
Well, and we always say, like, I know this is a Batman show, but we also are famous for saying that just because it's a DC property doesn't mean you have to incorporate Batman.
Yeah.
So yeah, an excuse to not to because I think having Batman as a part of the team, because he's even around for a lot of Justice League Dark as well. So it can sometimes be almost like used like a crutch. So it does kind of force you to say, like, yeah, Batman being on this team wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. When you had Wonder Woman in Justice League Dark, Wonder Woman in Justice League, and Wonder Woman in her own series, you just have that moment of like, when does she sleep?
Yeah. I mean, I know
Eat?
she's immortal, but like I know she has a bladder. She has to go to the bathroom at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Batman's in Justice League and 5 of his own titles.
yeah.
How?
Well, I mean, we all know Batman doesn't sleep.
I mean,
So
that's true.
cool, man. Yeah, I like it.
All right. What's yours? Did you do Subversive Justice League? What do we do?
No, I briefly considered doing like Justice League, like on under the water or something like that. But I actually decided what was more interesting and more I think relatable, especially to the current state of the world, is to call it Justice League Green.
Okay.
And it's basically the Justice League of it's the Eco Justice League.
Okay.
Justice League of the Environment. But I mean, there's villains involved too. But I mean, I really did get the idea to do this watching Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, because the idea of a evil backed global threat to the environment is I think very topical.
Yeah.
And given the technology and the evolution of comics that we have in 2024, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with that. I think we'll talk more about this when we talk about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in next week. But I think what would have really benefited the movie was if it had focused on just the environmental threat side of things. I really don't care about the other stuff happening in that movie. It's not as interesting. It's not as impactful. But that being said, that level of a threat does feel like a Justice League level threat, not just an Aquaman level threat. So I think if you're going to have a truly super villain backed assault on the ecosystem of the planet, then let's have a special delegation of the Justice League dedicated to dealing with those kinds of problems.
Well, I think that's also really cool because you could also, that just easily lead you into corruption,
Mhm.
lead you into going up against big business, big government, big anything. Because most of the Justice League teams, they don't work with any kind of government,
Nope.
not impunity, supervision, anything like that. And I think that would be neat, especially what if you get into the whole thing that like somehow Wayne Enterprises is doing something, and could
Yeah.
you get this story where they're actually going against Batman?
That's why, like I say, it's one of those things, like if it's sold really well and they decided to make it an ongoing series, then yeah, you could really get into that stuff. But even just as like a short limited series, it also gives you the opportunity to make a bunch of characters interact that normally probably don't get to interact with each other, or
Yeah.
that you don't get to see a whole lot of. That's why it's one of those, like, you'd want to have a really truly killer writing team attached to this thing, like Tom King or something like that, who can really take some characters and give them some depth that maybe they've been missing out on. And I picked some interesting ones. I will say that one of them's going to make you laugh, and one of them you might not know, because honestly I didn't know about it until I googled it.
Look, I'm
but-
just going to be mad if Guana Beast isn't on your team. That's all I'm saying right
Well,
now.
let's go ahead and get into your team first. So you said you've got one that is, no pun intended, out of this world. So let's hear what. Do you have villains picked as well, or just heroes?
I just did heroes. I
Okay.
didn't do villains.
I have
And
a couple of
apparently-
villains picked. I don't care if you do or not. But I had a sudden stroke of genius with mine, so I have a probably longer character list than you do.
Oh my gosh, my character list disappeared. God dog it. Well, it's fine. I can let me write it down real quick.
You want me to do mine first while you do that, or
No, I just want to have it down.
okay?
So being an international, being it not internet, being an intergalactic, being in space, my thing was the perfect people to lead this team would be Mr. Miracle and Big Barda.
Okay, I'm gonna do it.
You know, they're new gods, they're from New Genesis. They would have all the understanding and ability to travel through the different cosmos, through the different areas. I think that would be totally cool. And I like those characters. Every time they show up somewhere, I'm always excited for them.
Mhm.
And then with that in mind, you're going to have some crazy different characters. Do you know who Mr. Majestic is?
I do not know. I'm
Okay.
gonna Google him while you talk about him.
I can put it in the chat if you want me to. So he is a Wildstorm character. He's basically one of those Superman allegories.
Okay.
But he's part of the Wildcats Wildstorm thing, where the cherubim are the good aliens that come, and most of the heroes that have superpowers are like hybrids of that.
Mhm.
And he was like a big nobleman of that time, blah blah. He's basically Superman.
Okay.
But I think because he spends most of his time in space or doing the alien thing in his titles and going galactic that way, I thought it would be much more interesting, instead of just tossing Supergirl into the team, was having him be on the team himself.
Sure.
The other one I have is, I mean, you're not going to be surprised by this at all, is Aztec. Now, the current Aztec is female.
Yeah. Okay. It took me a second to remember who you're talking about.
Yeah. The male one sacrificed himself. Now, granted, that's pre-New 52, pre-Rebirth.
Right.
Everything I looked in said that he has never returned. It's always been this woman. So that's where I liked that. I always liked that character. I think it's something interesting to do. And it gets away from having to have like Hot Girl or something on the team.
Is Aztec the one that works with or gets together with the Ray later on?
The female version, I believe, does, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So do you need a picture as well?
No, I got it pulled up here. That's
Okay.
why I pulled it up, and it looked really familiar, and I think that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And then let's see. The next one I have, this is the one I think is going to be really sweaty deep. Do you know who the Dark Stars are in DC Comics?
Surface level, not in any great amount of detail.
So it was a series that came out in the late, maybe early 90s, and they're essentially kind of like if you combine the Nova Corps with the Green Lantern Corps. And they are, when you get into the deep background of them, they are an offshoot of the Lantern Corps that kind of want to do more their own thing. I just think they have a really cool look, and I would use the Carla White version of the character who was in the series for a while and then quits. And this would be a great way to bring not only the Dark Stars back, but her back into the fold. That also gets you the two or three females on the team, which I think would be a lot of fun.
Okay.
And it's, like I said, these characters, they kind of had their own series, and then eventually they became villains because they were taken over, which I hate. So I'm going to bring them in. Are you a fan of the Green Lantern animated series, the CGI one? I believe you
I
are.
I still to this day have not watched it,
Okay.
and I know people are already screaming at me when they hear me say that. It was one of those, like, it was on Cartoon Network at just the right age for me to not care, because I was at that weird young adult stage where I didn't care about animation stuff for a little bit.
Sure.
And I've just never gone back to watch it, but I've heard it's incredible.
So to avoid having to have a Green Lantern on this team, I'm going to have Razor from that show be on the team. He has been recently introduced into the comics.
Okay.
Even though that series ended, he did end up appearing in an episode, maybe two, of Young Justice. So the series ends with him leaving, but he was a Red Lantern throughout the whole show. It
Oh, I
hints he's going to be a
recognize him.
blue.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would, instead of having Green Lantern, have him there. And now whether he's going to be both a Blue Lantern and Red Lantern combined, I have no idea. I would probably lean just making him be a Blue Lantern, but having him be both might actually add some funness to it.
I think a Blue Lantern is more interesting just because we have there's truly the full spectrum, and I don't have them on display right now, but I have a box with all the different spectrum rings.
Yeah.
We've seen green and yellow lanterns, our whole lives. We've seen bits of red lanterns, particularly in Injustice, but like the Blue Lantern Corps, the other variations, I think would be cool to get some time spent with them, and a chance to, again, like, it's a comic book, let's spend some time with other Lantern Corps and get them involved, especially because you said you're not going to use a Green Lantern, and to me that is insane. But okay.
Well, I think what I would, in my opinion, the whole thing is like what the Green Lantern Corps, sometimes what they're doing is great, and sometimes you have those moments of like, you guys are pricks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as much as Hal Jordan does end up doing his own thing more often than not, I feel like when you're talking about influence and their agenda, I would keep a Green Lantern out of this team.
Well, it's when the Green Lantern Corps has a lot in common with the Jedi, especially our modern interpretation of the Jedi, where, like, through things like Tales of the Jedi and Ahsoka and all that, like, the Jedi weren't always all good or all right. Sometimes they were a little, up their own ass about certain things, and that's very much in common. The Green Lantern Corps has that very much in common, especially the Guardians. The Guardians have so much in common with the Jedi Council that we know from Star Wars. It's actually, can't believe that never occurred to me until like just now.
That's brilliant, bro. That's brilliant. And then the last one, just because like I like chaos and it would be hilarious because I think he's always fun, I just drop Lobo on the team.
You're out of your mind with that one. Don't get me wrong, I love Lobo. That's one of those. It's like, ooh, I'd have to see a script.
It just the idea of Mr. Majestic and Lobo being on the same team, it just writes itself at that point. Like, you're having a ball.
Well, yeah, I guess stuff like this, you've always got to have that one outlaw that you basically blackmail into working with the good guys for a little bit. I mean, I have a little bit of that in mind too, so I guess we're kind of on the same page in that way.
Well, and it just makes good writing. If everybody's getting along and there's no rivalry amongst the team, like, because Big Bart and Mr. Miracle, they're not gonna be rivaling.
Yeah.
You might get some Dark Star, Razor kind of thing going on because they don't trust each other. But like, just putting Lobo in there to just be ridiculous, I think would be hilarious.
Hell yeah.
So that's my team. That's my randomness. I think it and just having them go through the cosmos, helping planets, solving problems. Who knows? I think it would just be hilarious.
That's some deep shit, man. That's some deep cut. Like, yeah, I didn't know a lot of that. Ooh, I had to do some Googling while we were talking. Because but I think that's kind of the point. Again, we said, like, you can use this as an excuse. Again, you do these as like a short limited series or something, and you can get characters in there that you normally wouldn't get to play with because they're not going to sell long term. But
yeah,
you get some. We saw it with, you mentioned him earlier, but like when you look at what the glow up they gave Buona Beast in Batman the Brave and the Bold animated series, to where he's the heartfelt, sacrifice we end the series on, and it
Yeah.
feels earned with Wanna Beast.
Well, and that's where like the only problem I really had with my roster was like there's no big hitter as far as like big name.
I mean, you could that I think that's where
Maybe Lobo.
well, if you don't mind a bit of feedback,
No, go ahead.
uh that's where I think it's like you could have because I did something similar with my team, and I'll tell you about it in a sec, where you have like an OG member that's there to like sponsor slash supervise this adjacent team.
Yeah.
Because Batman kind of did that with Justice League Dark.
Yeah.
And so you could have well, I mean, shit, in Teen Titans, we saw that when Cyborg does the Titans East for a couple episodes.
Yeah.
So you could have, say, John Stewart
Or Martian Manhunter.
or Martian Manhunter, you know, someone who knows these outer sectors. Again, I think that's why you get like a Green Lantern in there that way, because he could be your connection then into Razor is by having Hal or Kyle or John be there to be like, hey, I'm gonna bring this guy in. We, you know, worked with him before or whatever. But then that way you could have a Green Lantern that's just kind of in the atmosphere, but you don't have to use them all the time. He's there as a liaison for the Justice League, not the Green Lantern Corps.
I mean, you know, even more of like these are problems that Green Lanterns don't want to mess with. That's why you're here.
Right.
You know what I'm like? That would be a cool thing of like, hey, Oa has decreed that this thing that's happening is just an interplanetary problem that they're not getting involved in, but you guys need to go. Because
you could literally have it. Yeah, he goes to the Justice League and says like, hey, yeah, Oa doesn't want to get involved. I need a team. You can have the rest of the league. You can be like, we don't have enough league members who know this extraterrestrial realm like you do. So he just goes, well, then fine. I'm just going to go pick who we've got and I'm going to make it work. And so that's how you get that. Could just be that through line in that first issue to get this team put together.
Yeah. The Batman just goes to Hal. He's like, look, I have my outsiders. Go make your own Justice League team. Leave my people alone.
I have to go stand in the corner and groan every time John Constantine does magic. It's my favorite thing in anything DC animated ever is just every time in that movie magic happens, Batman just goes, so good. So good.
All right. What's your roster? I'm curious. What you got?
All right, so this is what I was talking about, like why I suggested doing that thing with the Green Lantern. So what I have is that Aquaman is going to be the like supervisory, like I'm putting this special team together. You're going to go do your own thing, but I'm your contact point back to the Justice League. And I'm going to have him. You want to have that person that the overseer installs, who's kind of on their same wavelength. I didn't want to just do Aqualad. So instead what I went with was a character called Dolphin.
Okay.
Are you familiar with her?
I mean, I'm sure if I look up a picture, I'm going to know.
Yeah, just Google DC Dolphin. She did a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's in Young Justice, isn't she?
I think so. I stopped watching Young Justice. Like I'd never got very far into it, so I can't say for sure. But yeah, she's another like Atlantean type, you know. Well, I don't know whether or not she's a member of the Justice League, but whatever. I'm playing with house money at this point.
Yeah.
Who cares? But I also feel like there's an opportunity here for a great character arc with another character, which is basically Aquaman's going to name another because I've got a lot of like people who probably aren't Justice League members, but like this is their first shot at being in the Justice League because it's a special project.
Yeah.
So Aquaman's like, I can't dedicate enough time to this because of King of Atlantis business and Justice League business. I need someone who has it, who is good, who can put in a leadership role, basically be the assistant manager of this team. So that's where we're going to work in Green Arrow.
Nice.
Because then you could have this really great thing where Green Arrow is like now being put like, hey man, you're basically being put. This is basically like, if you want to lead your own team, this is your audition tape. Like you make this work, and we'll let you lead this team like legit. You won't have to answer to anyone except, you know, the OG7. You can, you know, operate, you can oversee this whole operation. And so we can have some great moments of character growth and character arc of like Green Arrow struggling with that, basically. Whether he either doesn't think he's up to it or doesn't want it, or you know, whatever the case might be. Then we'll get in another character who's been in the Justice League before, and this one's got some fan pull as well, just like Aquaman and Green Arrow, and that's Vixen. Get Vixen in there.
Vixen's always cool. I like
Vixen's
Vixen.
always fun. Hey, look, they did it in the Arrowverse. They've done it a lot in animation. They made a point of making her one of the OGs in the Crisis on Infinite Earths animated thing, which was not expected. But again, you know, we're looking at this is dealing with the environment, dealing with nature. So you want to have animal representation. So you've got Vixen. I'm also going to throw in Beast Boy.
Nice.
Because you can have, we've had examples of like Cyborg is now, you know, based on what you're reading, an OG member of the Justice League. We've seen where characters like Nightwing and Raven and Starfire have crossed over into working with the Justice League. Let's give Beast Boy a shot. And again, that's another opportunity where it's like he's got to learn to play with the big boys now.
Yes.
You know, Beast Boyisms aren't going to jive with the Justice League quite like they do the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
So let's have some fun with Beast Boy in there. And then for shits and giggles, let's throw in Buona Beast.
Yes.
He was always on my list. He was always on my list. Of course, Buona Beast. Why would you not? Because Buona Beast, I feel like could be that like kind of like how Wildcat is sometimes, especially with Black Canary. Like he's just like that old seasoned guy who never went full-time big leaguer, but he just doesn't give a shit. He's one of those guys. He's like perfectly happy with his content blue collar superhero lifestyle. You know, the guys who have spent who have spent 50 years working as a garbage man because they're like, whatever, man, it's work. I'm happy with my life. So he can kind of be there in the background, being like the wise old janitor or the grizzled old vet who's just there spouting advice. Like he's giving Green Arrow advice from, you know, just like, you know, chin up there, son, you know, that kind of thing. I also thought it would be cool because you can work in some overlaps with other characters. So like you could have Swamp Thing show up for like an issue. Because again, Swamp Thing has never been a Justice Leaguer. He kind of just likes to stay away from everyone else unless they give him a reason to. So obviously you cross over with Swamp Thing at some point. I thought it'd be cool to cross over with another subtitle with Justice League Dark, so you could have like Black Orchid show up. Of course, you know, you throw in Lobo. Well, I'm going to throw in Poison Ivy as, you know, someone they have to talk to. And then also just again, for fun, let's throw in Medfill. Do you know who Medfill is?
Medfill?
Yeah.
No.
Medfill is a Green Lantern. Medfill is a Green Lantern from a planet where everyone is basically plant-based.
Oh, let's see. Have I seen him before? Nope. Don't know that dude.
Yeah, I didn't either. He showed up when I was just Googling. I was like, is there anybody I'm not thinking of? And he popped up and I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Why not? Get him in there for an issue. It's fine. Because I think that, and the reason I picked also like having like a Swamp Thing and Black Orchid who are magic based, and Medfill who's kind of intergalactic based, and also Poison Ivy who's kind of the villain who's been enjoying a bit of an anti-hero streak in recent years. Because I also picked 3 villains they could be working against, which is Black Manta, Floronic Man, and Mr. Freeze.
Okay, yeah, heck yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Because Poison Ivy gives you your connection to Floronic Man. It's like we need a way, and what I basically had it was you've got Black Manta and Floronic Man are basically just like fuck the planet, full ego terrorist. We're gonna make it everything for just the water and for the land, basically. And then you get Mr. Freeze who gets thrown in. He's like dibs on the poles.
Yeah.
You know, dibs on the North and South Pole. So you get a whole array of characters from a bunch of different backgrounds. You know, you got some Batman characters, some Superman characters, some Aquaman characters, a whole bunch of other stuff, some of their own characters. And you can just have, again, this is one of those, it's like, it's such a weird amalgamation of characters and such a polarizing concept, I think, that this may or may not sell well. So it's one of those like, cool, you can do this as a one-off, low risk, low risk, high reward. And if it does end up doing well, then it leaves the door open again. Like you mentioned, like you could have a thing where, yeah, Wayne Enterprises is involved and they're like, yeah, how y'all want to handle this?
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing too, is, look, as cool and comic booky as some of this stuff is, there's so many of these characters who are owners and the big heads of these giant corporations. There is zero way they're keeping track of anything.
Yeah.
So to have some like additional accountability, like, hey, Bruce Wayne, it's great that you're Batman doing all these things, but you also have to take care of your own stuff.
Shit, dude. You got Green Arrow on this team. Queen Industries, like you can have it where you have like volume 2 would be, it would basically be like the whole entire run would be Queen Industries versus Wayne Industries.
Or you even have like they assault this place and stop it and they get inside and then one of the guys is like, Green Arrow, you need to look at this. You walk up and there's the Queen Industries logo on half their equipment.
Yeah.
And you're like,
exactly.
Yeah.
You could have smaller character moments like, they do the thing all the time where Vixen's a supermodel. Something you could have a one issue that's just her dealing with like a fur in the industry issue or something like that, and Beast Boy gets involved. Maybe you could have a lot of fun with this, but you could also tell some really sensitive topic stories that are very topical, because that's what comics do. That's what comic books do.
Well, and like you said, like even if they're fighting eco-terrorism, like some of that is as simple as like clean up the street, stop throwing your I mean, you don't want to get that minute per se, but like having a storyline of like, guys, you guys come to this park, but you keep leaving your trash.
Dude, that could be a whole issue just for Beast Boy of like, he's like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And he's just strolling the streets of a city one night having I don't know if you watched Ted Lasso, but
I have not.
In season 2, one of the coaches, there's an entire episode that's just dedicated to one of the coaches and all the crazy crap that happens to him overnight. From the time that he leaves the game to the time that he goes into the office the next morning, because he's a really weird character. And it's like, what is this guy's deal? You could have an entire episode of that. I mean, remember in Justice League Unlimited when they had the crowd control episode where Booster Gold? You could just do one of those with it where it's Beast Boy.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, I feel like I'm not making a difference. I feel like I'm not cut out for this. And he catches some guys, trashing a park or whatever, and just kind of has a come to Jesus thing with them. And then Buona Beast shows up in the background. It's like, I saw what you did back there, kid. I told you had it in you to be a part of this team, because that's what Buona Beast is going to be in this book.
Yeah. He's going to be the dude who's going to be like, no, dude, that's incredible. But no, I think that would be awesome.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. We love to know what you guys think. We'd love to know what you guys would pitch. Is there a Justice League subtitle that you'd like to have that maybe you have some character ideas for? Let us know in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on Facebook, let us know if you're listening to this on the Good Pods app. You can leave a comment when you rate and review the episode as well. We always love to hear from you guys. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/WATB pod. You can find me on social media at Mr. Mike Shea.
You can find me at Mr. J Ninja.
That is going to do it for this episode of We Are the Batman. We'll see you guys again next time. Same bat time, same bad podcast channel.
Bye-bye.